You are standing in the hallway of a crowded room, the muffled bass of a speaker vibrating through the floorboards. You slide your arms into your heavy winter coat. You have made the silent decision to leave. Then, a casual acquaintance leans against the doorframe, tilts their head, and drops the trap. Leaving already? Why? The reaction is instantaneous. A sudden tightness wraps around your windpipe. Heat flushes the back of your neck. Your brain short-circuits entirely. You do not just answer the question, you launch into a panicked 5-minute filibuster. Suddenly, you are talking about a demanding morning meeting that does not even exist. You mention a vague tickle in your throat. You stress the absolute necessity of feeding a cat that already has a full bowl of dry food sitting on your kitchen floor. You watch their eyes glaze over as you nervously twist a loose thread on your sleeve, frantically hunting for the exact combination of words that will make them nod. You are waiting for their approval to walk out the door. In that hallway, you are not an adult making a simple geographical change. You are the weak version of yourself. You are a nervous defense attorney presenting a frantic case to a judge who never even asked to preside over your life. Now look at the alternative. The ruthless version of you slides that exact same coat over your shoulders. The same casual interrogator asks the exact same question. You look them directly in the eye, pull your zipper up to your collar and say, "Yes, I'm heading out." Then you turn the brass knob and step into the cold night air. No stuttering, no imaginary meetings, just the devastating heavy weight of a sovereign decision. Why does that second scenario feel so physically uncomfortable to even imagine? Because every single word of unprompted justification is a literal coin of power that you pull from your own pocket and hand over to someone else. When you over-explain a simple exit, you are not providing polite context. You are begging for permission to govern your own existence. You are loudly communicating, through sheer behavioral desperation, that your choices are fundamentally invalid until the person standing in front of you signs off on them. The interrogator did not ask for your power. You volunteered it. You placed your autonomy on a silver platter and begged them to take it, simply to alleviate the unbearable tension of standing on your own 2 feet. You lie to yourself about this mechanism. You tell yourself that you are merely being polite. You call it social grace, a necessary sacrifice to smooth over the rough edges of human interaction. But this frantic, compulsive need to surrender your autonomy was not born yesterday. It was programmed into your nervous system decades ago. It was quietly installed in a place where you were completely reliant on giants, where you had absolutely zero power to walk away. You think you were just talking to an acquaintance at a party, but you are actually standing in an invisible courtroom inside your mind, a courtroom you never left. The faint scrape of a stainless steel fork against a ceramic plate. You are small, your feet dangling inches above a scratched linoleum floor. You push your half-empty glass away. You quietly state that you do not want any more. The air in the room instantly turns to lead. Across the table, the giant of your world stops chewing. They do not just disagree, their eyes narrow into a cold, demanding stare. Why? That single syllable was not a question of curiosity, it was a demand for a legally binding defense. Your pure desire, your simple refusal, meant absolutely nothing on its own. The giant across the table treated a basic negative response as a direct challenge to their authority. You only escaped the suffocating tension if you forged a bulletproof logical argument. You learned, right there in the harsh glow of the kitchen light, that nobody respected your boundaries automatically. To simply be treated like a human being, you had to build a case. You studied the microscopic shifts in their facial muscles. You memorized the exact arrangement of facts, the precise, submissive tone of voice that would finally make them nod and grant you permission to leave the table. You became a miniature defense attorney before you even learned how to tie your own shoes. You survived that house. You grew up. But the tragedy of your adult life is that you never fired the attorney. You brought the courtroom with you into the present day. Now, you project the ghost of that interrogating authority figure onto everyone you meet. A barista asks if you want your receipt, and a phantom hand grips your vocal cords. Your boss raises a single eyebrow at a minor scheduling request, and your pulse hammers rapidly against your jawline. Your partner casually asks why you bought a different brand of toothpaste, and your brain instantly shifts into cross-examination mode. You are staring at a completely normal person, but your nervous system is desperately trying to appease the ghost at the dining room table. Look at the weak version of yourself. You walk through your daily life, dragging a heavy, invisible briefcase. It is bursting with rehearsed alibis, logical excuses, and preemptive explanations. Your knuckles ache from the death grip you keep on the handle. You unpack this evidence at the slightest hint of silence. You aggressively present your documents to anyone who will glance your way, pouring out frantic words just to prove you have the right to take up space. The ruthless version of you looks at that heavy briefcase. You open your fingers. You let it hit the floor. You look around the vast, empty courtroom of your mind and accept the cold, liberating truth. The trial is over. The judge is dead. You are sweating on a witness stand that does not exist. But intellectual awareness is not a cure. Knowing exactly where this mental virus came from will not stop your throat from closing up when the pressure hits. Because right now, there are 3 specific types of people in your life who instinctively sense your trauma. They possess the master key to your nervous system. They know exactly how to bait your inner defense attorney out of hiding. And tomorrow, one of them will drop a trap right at your feet. Let us look closely at their faces. The first face belongs to the interrogating partner. They are leaning against the bedroom doorframe, arms loosely crossed, watching you toss a new brand of coffee into your grocery bag. You casually mention you decided to switch things up. They do not yell, they do not argue. They simply tilt their head, lock onto your eyes, and ask why you decided that. Notice your body in this exact second. Your lungs completely deflate. You shift your weight from one heel to the other. You clear your throat and instantly begin assembling a mental presentation of rational motives. You think they are just curious. They are not. This is an exertion of dominance disguised as a simple inquiry. They are testing the structural integrity of your reality. By forcing you to defend a harmless, mundane choice, they subtly position themselves as the ultimate judge of your logic. Now shift the scene to the fluorescent glare of your office. You send a brief email stating that a project phase cannot be completed by Thursday. A reply notification slides across your monitor. The passive-aggressive colleague writes back, "Well, okay, whatever you say," followed by 3 trailing periods. Look at those dots. They are not punctuation. They are a psychological black hole. Your pulse accelerates against your collarbone. You stare at the bright screen, your fingers hovering nervously over the keyboard. That ellipsis is emotional bait, deliberately engineered to create a silent void. And your traumatized nervous system absolutely abhors a void. Your anxiety scrambles to fill that empty space with a massive paragraph detailing your current workload, your conflicting priorities, and your stress levels. They did not even ask a question, yet you just put yourself back on the witness stand. Finally, the most insidious architect of doubt, the controlling parent. You are sitting in the passenger seat of their car or squinting at them through a grainy video call. You announce a new career move, a firm relationship boundary, or a shift in how you live your life. They soften their voice. They lean in close to the camera. They ask if you are absolutely sure this is right. The tiny muscle right behind your ear twitches. Your jaw clamps shut. This is their masterstroke. They mask their control under the warm, suffocating blanket of parental concern. They plant a tiny, toxic seed of incompetence directly into your mind, wrapping the insult in a loving smile. Expose the mechanism uniting all 3 of these faces. It is manufactured doubt. They do not actually care about your logistical reasons. They are not gathering data to understand your worldview. They are fishermen. They are throwing out a net woven from ambiguity, silence, and feigned concern. Your frantic, breathless explanation is the fish getting caught. The moment you open your mouth to justify your existence, they have won. You have surrendered the high ground. You have recognized the traps. You can finally see the net falling through the water. But seeing the danger is not enough to stop the deep physiological instinct to thrash. How do you destroy the net? How do you dismantle this trap without looking like the aggressive villain, without throwing an emotional tantrum that only proves their point? The answer lies in a weapon that is centuries old, a psychological mirror that takes their quiet, insidious aggression and reflects it entirely back onto them without you lifting a single finger. The cursor pulses at the end of the message. Whatever you say, your fingers are already resting on the home row, the muscles in your forearms tight, ready to unleash a flood of carefully constructed logic. The heat rises in your collar. Your nervous system is screaming at you to type, to patch the crack in the atmosphere, to make them understand. Pull your hands away from the plastic keys. Push your chair back half an inch. Let your palms rest flat on your thighs. You are going to do the most terrifying thing you have ever done in a social interaction. You are going to do absolutely nothing. Look directly at the screen, or if they are standing in front of your desk, look them dead in the pupils and let the silence hang for exactly 4 seconds. The internal shift is violent. The urge to speak manifests as a physical pressure building behind your ribs, thick and suffocating, like holding your breath at the bottom of a swimming pool. Your brain begs you to offer just one small clarifying sentence, just one tiny compromise to release the tension. But the ruthless version of you refuses to blink. You press your tongue hard against the roof of your mouth, trapping the words inside. 1. The air in the room suddenly feels thick. 2. Their expectant posture begins to stiffen. 3. The unspoken smugness falters. 4. This is the strategic pause. By engineering an unbearable emotional vacuum, you expose the true nature of their game. The passive-aggressive colleague threw a heavy, mud-covered ball right at your chest. Your entire life, your trauma response has been to dive across the room and catch it, covering yourself in their dirt while you frantically apologize for the mess. Not today. Today, you keep your hands firmly at your sides. You step out of the way. You let the ball drop loudly onto the floor. They are suddenly left entirely alone with their own unprovoked hostility echoing in the void. You gave them nothing to push against. You provided no thread for them to pull. Machiavelli understood this dynamic perfectly. The one who rushes to fill the silence is the one who serves. When you withhold your defense, you strip the opponent of their only ammunition. They built a psychological trap that relied entirely on your frantic momentum to spring it closed. Without your desperate explanation, their manipulation sits empty. It collapses under its own weight. You have delivered the silence. The crushing anxiety in your chest evaporates, replaced by a cold, heavy anchor settling deep in your stomach. You feel a surge of pure, unfiltered power. You just rewrote the rules of engagement without opening your mouth. But beware. A parasite does not simply detach and walk away the moment you cut off its primary food supply. It panics, it thrashes, it digs its teeth in infinitely deeper, desperate to extract the emotional reaction it feels entitled to. What happens in the next 72 hours will be brutal. It will determine whether you successfully forge your new reality, or if you completely break. The vibration of your phone against the kitchen counter is so violently continuous, it sounds like a drill. You are gripping a damp dishcloth over the sink, squeezing the fabric until the water runs completely dry down your wrists. You just did the unthinkable. You told your controlling parent that your financial decisions, or the way you raise your child, are no longer up for discussion. You offered no backstory. You gave no elaborate justification. Now, the system is detonating. The screen lights up with another paragraph of absolute venom. They call you arrogant. They call you secretive. The text practically screams, "You have changed. Who do you think you are?" A massive invisible weight drops directly onto your sternum. The instinct to apologize, to grovel, to fix the shattered atmosphere is so blinding that your peripheral vision actually darkens. Your thumbs hover over the glass screen, desperate to type out a massive paragraph of submission just to make the hostility stop. Do not press a single key. What you are experiencing right now is not a simple argument. Behavioral psychologists call this the extinction burst. When a laboratory animal presses a lever and suddenly stops receiving its usual pellet of food, it does not peacefully accept the new reality. It goes berserk. It smashes the lever 100 times a minute, frantically escalating its behavior to force the machine to work the way it always has. Your explanations were the food. Your parent is slamming the lever, desperately trying to trigger the obedient, over-explaining version of you that they have controlled for decades. They are not actually angry at your new boundary. They are absolutely terrified of their sudden loss of control. The screaming, the insults, the weaponized guilt, these are not genuine emotions. They are tactical escalations. The psychological hierarchy they relied on has collapsed, and they are using every weapon in their arsenal to force you back into your designated place at the bottom. If you cave right now, you seal your fate. If you break the silence and offer even a single sentence of justification to soothe their rage, you create a catastrophic psychological precedent. You teach the manipulator that your boundaries are fake. Worse, you teach them that escalating their abuse is the exact password needed to unlock your compliance. You show them that to get what they want, they just have to hit you harder. The pressure in the room is suffocating. The guilt is screaming directly into your ear, demanding that you surrender. The storm of their manufactured rage is tearing the roof off your reality. You are standing in the center of the wreckage, the phone still vibrating in your hand. How do you survive this brutal escalation without retreating into your old apologetic shell, but also without erupting into a completely destructive, defensive rage? You must become something they cannot grip. You must become stone. They are standing directly in the doorway, blocking the exit. Their arms are tightly folded, the chin tilted up in that unmistakable, rigid posture of a prosecutor preparing to dismantle a hostile witness. Your partner is demanding a minute-by-minute breakdown of your weekend schedule. They want to know exactly where you are going, who will be present, and why you had the absolute audacity to make plans without consulting them first. In the past, the trap would spring shut immediately. A sharp spike of adrenaline would flood your chest, your throat would tighten, and you would begin frantically assembling a mental itinerary. You would offer up locations, names, and desperate reassurances, treating their unwarranted suspicion as a legitimate court order. Not this time. You do not freeze, and you do not erupt into a defensive rage. You pick up the damp cloth you were squeezing earlier. You lay it flat on the kitchen counter and begin moving it in slow, deliberate, perfectly even circles. So you are just going to disappear for 2 days without a word? Their voice rises, carrying that familiar baiting edge meant to trigger your guilt. You do not ignore them. The silent treatment is a childish act of defiance that gives a manipulator the exact excuse they need to escalate the conflict. Instead, you offer them an absolute, suffocating void. That is the plan, you say. Your voice is entirely flat, carrying the exact same emotional weight as if you were reading the nutritional label on a box of dry pasta. They push harder. They accuse you of being secretive, of tearing the foundation of your relationship apart. They demand logistics. They demand a piece of your anxiety to soothe their own loss of control. It is handled. You let your shoulders drop half an inch. You let the muscles in your jaw completely slacken. You do not make eye contact. Your gaze remains firmly anchored to a microscopic coffee stain on the surface of the counter. This is the Gray Rock Protocol. It is the tactical deployment of terminal boredom. Psychological manipulators do not process your logic. They feed exclusively on your emotional spikes. They consume your rising panic, your defensive anger, and the frantic speed of your justifications. Every time you try to explain your reasoning, you are handing them a rope. They pull it, and they watch you stumble forward to meet their demands. By becoming a dull, frictionless surface, you sever the rope. There is zero leverage left to exploit. Your partner throws a heavy hook of manufactured outrage, expecting you to catch it with an apology or a tearful defense. Instead, their aggression hits a featureless wall and slides straight down into nothingness. Emotional vampires cannot extract blood from a stone. The atmosphere in the room shifts. Deprived of the chaotic energy they need to sustain the argument, their momentum completely collapses. They throw one final pathetic insult about your newly arrogant attitude, turn on their heel, and walk out. The door clicks shut. You stop wiping the counter. The silence left behind in the kitchen is sudden, heavy, and absolutely yours. You have starved the parasite. You have survived the storm of manufactured guilt without surrendering a single inch of your autonomy. But this deep, unfamiliar quiet you are standing in right now is not just empty space. Deflecting those who drain you is merely a basic survival tactic. The ultimate victory is not about the people you finally managed to push away. It is about the terrifying, massive territory you have just reclaimed and what begins to take root inside it. The final step is where the apologetic shell is permanently discarded and a truly sovereign identity is forged. You slide a single folded sheet of paper across the dark grain of the table. 30 days have passed since you stopped feeding the emotional vampires. Today, you are making a move that shatters the established order. You are walking away from a secure decade-long career track. Or perhaps you are breaking a lease to move to a city where you do not know a single living soul. The person sitting across from you picks up the document, reads the few lines of text, and slowly lowers it. They lean forward, resting their elbows heavily on the desk. Their eyes narrow into a sharp, evaluative stare. Are you sure this is the right move? They stop talking. They let the silence hang in the air like a weighted net. They are waiting for the pitch. They fully expect the familiar rush of nervous energy, the desperate bullet points, the frantic attempt to convince them that you have thought this through and are not making a colossal mistake. Look closely at what happens inside your body in this exact fraction of a second. Nothing. The screen of your mind does not even flicker. The invisible courtroom that used to govern your nervous system has been leveled to the ground. You do not immediately search for a defense. You do not frantically audit your own logic to see if it holds up under their hostile scrutiny. You feel the hard back of the wooden chair pressing against your shoulder blades. Your spine is forged steel. Your lungs draw in a slow, deep pull of oxygen without the slightest restriction in your chest. Your mind is dead, absolute quiet. You offer a soft, completely relaxed smile. Yes, that is the entire sentence. You do not follow it with a conjunction. You do not fill the negative space with apologies or elaborate theories. You simply shift your gaze to the window, watching the rain hit the pavement outside, perfectly comfortable letting them drown in the heavy silence that follows. This is the exact moment you stop being a tenant in your own life and become the absolute owner. Psychologically, every justification you used to offer was an application for a loan. You were unconsciously asking someone else to co-sign your reality because you did not trust your own credit. But a sovereign identity does not require external funding. You have fired the jury. You have permanently stripped the manipulators, the critics, and the background noise of their gavels. Your existence is its own justification. Your choices are final, not subject to a lengthy appeals process by people who will never have to live with the consequences of your sacrifices. In the comments, write, "My silence is my signature." Then, click the video on the screen to learn how to completely rewrite the power dynamics with people who have already lost respect for you. The trial is over. Court dismissed.